Ever since childhood, Tauka had been a punching bag for his father, while his mother never batted an eye. For his father, it was a twisted sport, a daily ritual of cruelty. Beneath his facade of a helpless victim, Tauka silently swore to kill them both. Tauka is suddenly awakened on the bus by laughter. Ayaka is being teased for reading romance novels by Shogo, while Tomohiro is just happy it's not his turn this time. Shogo promises to return the novel to a desperate Ayaka if she gives him her contact information. The rest of the students keep their heads down while the elites laugh away. The only ones acting normally are the Takao sisters and the apathetic teacher. Tauka thinks it would be pretty cool to step in, but it's not his style. However, as Ayaka becomes increasingly hysterical, he decides to give it a shot. Shogo laughs at the loser trying to play the hero. From the back of the bus, in a calm demeanor, Takudo tells Shogo to leave Ayaka alone. Without hesitation, Shogo obliges and turns his attention back to Tomohiro, wondering why he is so quiet when even the quiet Tauka stepped in. The teacher finally stops the commotion, muttering that it wouldn't do anyone any good if Tomohiro ended himself on this school trip. Suddenly, the bus is enveloped in light. Before they know it, the students find themselves standing in a huge hall. From above, the goddess Vicious explains that she summoned them, heroes, to her world to strike down the great demon empire. Roughly 200 years ago, heroes defeated the evil, but after a long time, the demon empire has resurfaced. She asks for their help in defeating it once more. The students panic at first, but all signs point to them actually being in another world. The teacher calms them down, advising the students to listen to the goddess, though he really only has one thing on his mind. Meanwhile, Tauka analyzes his surroundings and the ancient architecture, realizing that he's not dreaming. This must be another world. Takudo asks what happens if they don't help defeat the demon empire. Vicious replies that they will never be able to return to their original world. To return, they need to perform a reverse summoning ritual, which requires Demon King essence. This essence can only be obtained by defeating the Demon King. Very convenient. Ayaka wonders how they, mere humans, can be of any use. The goddess explains that upon summoning, they've gained new powers. Tauka senses something is off. To demonstrate the magnitude of their powers, the goddess calls for a demon hound and sets it against a prisoner. The hound decimates him in an instant. The goddess then casts a fireball, incinerating the hound. Before proceeding further, the goddess wants to reveal the skills hidden inside them using a crystal ball. The brighter it shines, the higher their rank. As the crystal ball passes to each student, Shogo's light shines very brightly, making him an I rank. He immediately begins to brag about it. When the stoic Takudo steps up, the crystal shatters from the sheer amount of mana he pours into it, designating him as an S-class. Ayaka's light is equally dazzling, placing her in the same esteemed rank. Most of the students show a lot of promise, displaying the powerful abilities granted to them. When it's Tauka's turn, his light is dim, the weakest by far. It's so faint that the goddess Vicious ignores him entirely, pretending he doesn't exist. Even in this new world, Tauka feels like garbage. On the other hand, Tomohiro, the constantly bullied kid, has the dark element, which is considered the strongest of all. His attitude shifts drastically upon learning this. Everyone then opens their status screens, representing their power in numerical values. Tauka's stats look like a lost cause, with pitiful numbers compared to the others. His unique skill is inflicting status ailments. The unique skills are special abilities that only that individual can use, and users can awaken other unique skills later on. Shogo, already annoyed by the goddess yapping, expresses his impatience. The teacher steps in, but Shogo, being an I rank, dismisses him rudely, noting he's only rank D. Goddess Vicious reveals that there's another ritual to perform, and she calls for Tauka to step forward. She announces his rank as E, the lowest of the scum, causing the other students to look down on him. She explains that in the past, E-rank heroes dragged down the stronger ones, so it was decided to deal with such heroes differently. The teleportation circle will transport the lowest rank hero to a set of ruins, known as the Ruins of Disposal. If Tauka survives, the goddess won't interfere further. However, the ruins are extremely dangerous, a place where highly dangerous criminals are sent. Essentially, it's a dumping ground for trash. In an attempt to defend himself, Tauka reveals his unique skill, Inflict Status Ailment. The goddess just sighs, explaining that in this world, ailment spells are generally worthless. They have too low of a success rate, barely affect low-ranked monsters, and the duration is far too short. In short, his skill is trash tier. Feeling the weight of unfairness, Tauka protests, crying out about the injustice. Before he can finish, Takudo steps in and silences him. Enough with your whining, low rank. And the rest of the class follow Takudo's lead. Just as Tauka thinks Tomohiro might take his side because of how he treated him at school, he is harshly reminded that even Tomohiro views him as beneath him, calling him Mr. Trash Hero. The goddess Vicious throws him a pathetic-looking pouch as his unique item. When he pours magic into the gem, it just glows faintly, reinforcing the mockery. Ayaka is the only one who steps in to defend Tauka, but Vicious knocks her out to keep the situation under control. She reaffirms that everyone here is a winner except Tauka. Annoyed and desperate, Tauka uses his paralyzed skill on Vicious, but it fails. She further insults him, calling his attempt pathetic. Takudo tests his own unique spell, which is vastly superior, adding to Tauka's humiliation. As the other students pile on the insults, the goddess asks for Tauka's last words. Feeling alone and helpless in this new world, Tauka is reminded of his childhood, when he developed a split personality as a coping mechanism. This other side of him always reminded him to stop pretending to be harmless, and to show his true colors. A twisted smile spreads across Tauka's face as he looks at Vicious and the others. "I wish you all rot in hell," he says, his voice cold and steady. "If I make it back alive, I will come for you." In the dark, ominous ruins, Tauka's only saving grace is the faint light from the gem in his pouch. The shadows play tricks on his mind. Suddenly, a creature lunges at him, and Tauka instinctively starts dashing away. The raw power and hostility of the monster are overwhelming, and for the first time, he feels genuine terror mixed with frustration. How could this be his fate? Was he truly destined to die here, discarded like trash? As Tauka sprints for his life, his mind races. He recalls the mocking laughter of his classmates, the contemptuous look of the goddess, and the sneers of everyone who ever belittled him. A burning desire for power surges within him. He clenches his fists and, almost desperately, casts his paralysis spell. To his shock, the spell works, immobilizing the Minotaur-like monster. This shouldn't be possible, Tauka thinks. The goddess had said ailments rarely worked, especially on stronger monsters. But this Minotaur was definitely not weak. Could it have been a miracle? He doesn't waste time contemplating. He keeps running, but soon stumbles upon another creature, a Cacatris. Desperation and determination mix in his heart as he casts paralysis again. Once more, the spell works. It isn't just luck, he realizes. His magic might be different, unique in this world. Panting and drained, he checks his status screen. He's out of mana points. With the last of his energy, he casts a poison spell on the Cacatris, watching as the toxic magic slowly eats away at the creature. Exhaustion hits him, but he feels a twisted sense of satisfaction. His magic is more potent than the goddess had led him to believe. Just then, the paralysis on the Minotaur wears off, and it charges at him with renewed fury. Tauka's body screams in protest, but his mind is a whirlwind of rage and resolve. He remembers the goddess's disdain, the abuse he suffered in his childhood, and the betrayal of everyone who ever wronged him. "I will not die here," he mutters through gritted teeth. "I will survive. I will kill everyone who mocked me. I will have my revenge." Tauka used his mana on the goddess, the Minotaur, and the bird head, and twice on the gem for light. Now, he has no mana points left, except for his own innate MP. Tauka wonders what will happen if he uses up his personal MP, doubting he has enough to make it out of the ruins. He casts Paralyze, but a system message in his head informs him that he can't use the same skill on the same target consecutively, so he puts the Minotaur to sleep, and then casts Poison. With each use beyond his MP, Tauka grows increasingly tired. With a horde of bird heads marching in his direction, he has to bet everything he has. He wonders if he'll run out of inner MP before all the monsters are dead. Tauka starts casting Paralyze left and right, slowly losing consciousness as he does. But there are even more monsters. Just as he reaches his limit, the bird head he cast Poison on from the start dies. He gets a massive level up, and his MP is instantly recovered, allowing him to paralyze the Minotaurs charging at him. With a sudden grin, Tauka understands that this will enable him to fight them all off. With his excessive use of Paralyze, his skill levels up, now allowing him to cast it on multiple targets at once. He hasn't failed to inflict a status ailment a single time, maintaining a 100% success rate, except for the attempt on the goddess. He then goes around, casting poison on all the paralyzed monsters, leveling up that skill as well. Tauka has successfully created an XP farm. Opening his status screen, he finds that his level multiplies his initial stats, resulting in an abnormal amount of MP. Another monster dies, and his stats increase. The whole floor starts to be wiped out, and Tauka's level rises exponentially. He also levels up his sleep skill. Tauka is now certain he can survive these ruins and have his revenge. Just as he is about to take on the next pack, the monsters tremble in fear and flee. Finding a fallen skeleton, Tauka scavenges what he can and offers a silent prayer. Ahead, powerful monsters guard their territory amidst multiple corpses. Malnourished and desperate, Tauka hesitates, wishing for food. Recalling the slain monsters, his only potential food source, he reluctantly turns back. His stomach grumbles. He attempts to carve into a minotaur, but its armor proves impenetrable. Focusing on the eye, despite it oozing with acid, Tauka takes a bite, only to spit it out in disgust. It's inedible. Surviving this dungeon seems impossible. Just as despair sets in, he notices the gem on his bag changing color, revealing a surprising bounty: beef jerky and a can of Coke. Mystified by the bag's workings, Tauka wonders if it will provide more. Days blur into one another as Tauka navigates the ruins, mastering even the most treacherous floors and rapidly gaining levels. Amidst his conquests, Tauka's emotions unexpectedly crop up as memories of his turbulent childhood resurface. He swore to kill his father for his brutal beatings. The only salvation had been his aunt and uncle, who had given him a semblance of a normal life. Tauka had hoped to learn kindness from them, but that didn't happen. He doesn't shudder at the horror of taking a life, nor does he agonize over it. He's scared at his indifference. But to have his revenge, Tauka gladly accepts the new him. Marching onward, the monsters no longer posed any threat to Tauka. However, he felt the atmosphere shift as he discovered a gem on a door. Pouring his mana into it, the door opened, revealing a skeleton clutching a letter. It contained the man's last words, revealing he was once a great sage known as the Dark Hero, Anglin. The goddess had mentioned him, noting his aura was similar to Tomohiro's. In the letter, Anglin explained how the goddess had sent him to these ruins when he was deemed no longer necessary. Anglin's final message conveyed that if the reader wished to leave the place alive, he entrusted them with his belongings. Tauka finds it amusing how the goddess had summoned them to eradicate the evil of the great demon emperor, yet she herself is evil. Tauka has no intentions to save this world. They all are forces of evil. In Anglin's bag, Tauka discovered the Forbidden Arts, the complete works, containing recipes for making medicine and magic tools, along with scrolls of forbidden spells, though Tauka couldn't read them. Suddenly, he stumbled upon a bloody page with a warning: beware of the Soul Eater. Finding a door that seems to lead to the surface, Tauka realizes he needs something to fit into it for it to open. Even the Dark Hero, hailed as the strongest, is unable to defeat the Soul Eater. Tauka has raised his level as high as possible up to this point. Turning a corner, he encounters a pale-faced creature with a gem on its forehead. He attempts to cast Paralyze, but is swiftly struck by a beam. He recognizes it immediately as the Soul Eater. It reacts faster than he can cast. Considering whether he should further level up, suddenly the walls burst open, and the Soul Eater flies towards him, though it does not attack. Instead, it begins spitting pink goo and summoning defeated adventurers, seemingly amused by Tauka's reactions. Bursting through another wall, it opens its eyes and laughs. Tauka attempts to paralyze the pink goo but can't bring himself to cast poison, as the goo resembles humans too closely. Overwhelmed, Tauka starts crying, realizing the Soul Eater is feeding on his desperation. It's amused by how helpless Tauka is. As the goo surrounds him, he begs for someone to come to his rescue, pretending to be in despair. However, it's all an act. He actually paralyzes the Soul Eater, waiting for the perfect moment when it lets its guard down, thinking it has won. His acting is convincing because he has played the good boy for years. Tauka uses poison, slowly consuming the monstrous face of the Soul Eater. As the Soul Eater perishes, the souls of the fallen adventurers are released, praising Tauka for his skills and thanking him for setting them free. The Dark Hero asks Tauka to take care of the goddess. That has been Tauka's plan from the start, to make the trash goddess pay. Inserting the crystal into the door, it finally opens, and after a long time, Tauka sees the light, escaping the dungeon. At the same time, the rest of the class works diligently to pass the quest assigned by the goddess to kill a monster. Takuto goes beyond the assignment, leveling up to 18, and Tomohiro enjoys himself to the fullest. Meanwhile, Kobato struggles to kill even a single monster. This is where Asagi steps in. She believes that, because of their class egos, soon they will split into factions and wants Kobato to join hers. Asagi reassures her, saying that if she can't be useful with her skills, she has other qualities going for her. In a show of kindness, Asagi captures a monster using her other lackeys, and forces Kobato to kill it to pass Goddess Quest, so she doesn't end up like Tauka in the disposal ruins. Kobato feels sorry for the monster, tears welling up in her eyes. This reminds her of the time when Tauka saved a wounded kitten, filling her with regret for not being able to help Tauka when he was cast away. Meanwhile, Ayaka finally awakens from being knocked out. She immediately goes to the goddess, who feigns sorrow for Tauka, claiming it was the kingdom's policy and out of her control. The goddess then explains the quest to kill a monster, adding that several heroes have already refused to take up arms, leading to their disqualification. It's part of culling the weak, she says. Ayaka, angered by the goddess's methods, expresses her disdain, but the goddess remains unfazed, telling her to live with it. Determined, Ayaka proposes to take on the duties of those vicious deemed worthless, offering to work for their stay. The goddess finds this proposal intriguing and offers to shake on it as a gesture of goodwill, and an apology for knocking her out like a little dog. Reluctantly, Ayaka shakes hands with the goddess, later noting how cold her touch felt. Meanwhile, the girl who was near Tauka's ruins flees from a group of mercenaries calling themselves the Holy Watchers, leaving behind a trail of clues. Outside the ruins, Tauka reviews his stats. He's achieved an impressive level 1789 as an E-ranker, and discovers he can now dispel paralysis from target's head and make his poison non-lethal. Eager to test these abilities, he ventures deeper into the woods, and finds a group of slimes attacking a smaller one. As the situation seems hopeless for the tiny creature, it suddenly springs into action. Tauka intervenes by paralyzing them all. Curious about how the settings work, he decides to let the larger slimes go, while the little one cowers in fear. Tauka reassures the small slime, promising no harm. Impressed by its bravery, he removes the paralysis, and the slime cautiously follows him. Recognizing the little slime as an outcast just like himself, Tauka feels a sense of sympathy and kinship with it. And now, Tauka feels confident that his back is always covered. In the book he received from Anglin, he finds a spell to enhance monsters. Before using it, he explains to Slimy that he's on a journey of vengeance. Slimy vows accompany him to the world's end. Meanwhile, the hunted girl in the woods is desperately trying to evade the mercenaries. With no other options left, she decides to confront them, drawing her sword and preparing a long incantation to bolster her strength. However, before she can act, the mercenaries stumble upon Tauka, who feigns fear. As they prepare to kill him, they talk about their plans to break the girl's spirit. Tauka, annoyed by their arrogance, decides to intervene. Raising his hand with a trembling voice, Tauka begs for mercy, but the mercenaries are unmoved. They've already made up their minds. With a swift incantation, Tauka casts Paralyze, silencing them instantly. Unfazed by the hostility, he then uses poison to eliminate the mercenaries. As he does, he senses someone else nearby. The girl, sensing the mercenaries' presence has suddenly vanished, is left bewildered, but she senses someone else. The presence is unsettling. She slashes through the bush, only to discover it was a diversion, as Tauka paralyzes her. Once she's immobilized, Tauka introduces himself as an outsider and asks if the 4 mercenaries were her companions. After releasing the paralysis from her head, she admits they were hunting her and is astonished to hear that Tauka has killed them. Detecting no ill intent from her, Tauka uses this opportunity to ask several questions about their location and other pertinent details. More importantly, he inquires if she can read an ancient script he found. She recognizes it as an ancient script but confesses she cannot decipher it herself, although she knows someone who might be able to. The girl tells him about a witch who specializes in taboo spellworks but was exiled from her homeland. This witch now resides in the land of golden-eyed monsters. Feeling that Tauka has saved her life, she expresses a desire to repay him, but he assures her that they are even and suggests they part ways. As he turns to leave, Slimy catches up with Tauka. Tauka explains to Slimy that he will only kill according to his own rules and avoids needless slaughter. He also informs Slimy that he will rely on him to keep watch, just in case the girl decides to pursue him for any reason. Meanwhile, in the city, there is a huge bounty on the half-elf princess Siras. Finally reaching the city of Mills, Tauka is mistaken by the guard for a mercenary, answering a call to conquer the nearby ruins. Playing along, Tauka is allowed entry since they are in dire need of as many mercenaries as possible. At an inn, Tauka requests a private room. Initially looking at him with disgust, the innkeeper quickly changes his tune upon seeing a flash of coin. After changing clothes, Tauka strolls through the city, noting that no one seems suspicious of strangers, giving the city a safe feel. The city has all the typical shops of a fantasy western town. Stopping by a nearby tavern, Tauka finally enjoys a warm meal and uses the opportunity to eavesdrop on some drunken men discussing the strongest armies on the continent. They conclude that the Black Dragon Knights, a famously undefeated army, are the strongest. Tauka even grabs some leftovers for Slimy to chew on. His game plan involves finding someone who can read the Scroll of Forbidden Magic, which means locating the Witch of Taboos. There's also the matter of the monster enchantment to improve Slimy's abilities. He needs the Skeleton King's bone powder for the enchantment. Recalling the drunken men's conversation, he learns there is a Skeleton King in the mill's ruins, an opportunity he cannot pass up. The next morning, Tauka volunteers to join the next expedition into the ruins. The town's mayor promises 300 gold pieces to anyone who can bring back the Dragon Eye Chalice from within the ruins. As everyone lines up to register, a man starts pestering a girl. Hearing her speak, Tauka hears a familiar voice. The pestering man, Monk Drighedi, notes she reminds him of a former knight commander with a huge bounty on her head. As the mercenaries whisper about the girl, Drighedi continues to harass her, recalling how an elf girl had utterly rejected him before. Despite her claims that he has the wrong person, he takes off her cap, revealing she is not the elf girl. Still, Tauka recognizes her as the girl from the forest. She introduces herself as Mist. Embarrassed, Drighedi runs away, cursing Mist for being pretty. Talk about unfounded resentment. Before heading into the ruins, Tauka decides to do some shopping. Crossing paths with Mist, she wonders if Tauka is also here to answer the call about the ruins. This leads to a conversation about the spectacle with Drighedi. Eventually, Tauka asks Mist to help him buy supplies so he doesn't get swindled, offering to pay her in exchange. She agrees, reintroducing herself as Mist. Tauka suspects it is an alias, but he understands that everyone has a secret or two. After some shopping and receiving good recommendations from Mist, Tauka pays her 3 silver coins, much more than she expected. Grateful, she's about to leave when she collapses from exhaustion, having not slept for several days. Getting to her feet, she quickly rushes away. With all his supplies gathered, Tauka delves into the ruins. He immediately encounters adventurers fleeing in fear from a mini version of a minotaur. It's nothing Tauka can't handle. The previous adventurers return with backup, only to be shocked to see the monster defeated without any visible wounds. As Tauka ventures deeper, he notices the monsters are not hostile towards him, and his experience gains are much lower. He decides to pick up the pace. On one of the levels, he overhears Drighedi instructing a few mercenaries to kill Mist. Drighedi proclaims that he won't be able to sleep until her smug face is dead and fed to the monsters. Even the other mercenaries find his obsession disturbing. Descending towards them and with indifference in his eyes, he remarks that they are irredeemable. Drighedi snaps, and the mercenaries prepare to attack Tauka. With cold indifference, Tauka mockingly asks for forgiveness and mercy. When the brutes charge, Tauka paralyzes and poisons them, noting how satisfying it feels to rid the world of filth like them. In an ironic twist, they are the ones that become monster feed. The new, unexplored floor lies just ahead, but before venturing further, Tauka decides to rest, getting 3 hours of sleep with Slimy keeping watch. When he leaves the room, he encounters a group of mercenaries discussing a strange occurrence in the ruins. Monsters are dying without any visible wounds. The group, worried and confused, decides to withdraw. Tauka realizes they're talking about his poison kills. Exploring the new floor, Tauka opens a door to a room containing a dragon chalice. It's immediately obvious that the statue inside moves, so before it can act, Tauka poisons and decimates it. Suddenly, Mist appears behind him, praising him for reaching this place before her. Without much explanation, Tauka hands her the chalice, explaining he has no need for gold. Bewildered, Mist is reluctant to accept such a gift. But Tauka's real objective isn't the treasure, it's the monster lurking below. Refusing to back down, Mist offers to be Tauka's guard to repay her debt. Tauka, sensing no malice from her, accepts on a few conditions. They avoid prying into each other's circumstances, and they won't return to the surface for at least a day. Mist promises to protect him, even at the cost of her life. As they descend further, Mist showcases her abilities, impressing Tauka, who then inquires about monsters with golden eyes. She explains that those monsters yield more XP and are better for leveling up. According to legend, the Demon King radiates a special energy known as the Demon King Essence, which turns monsters influenced by it into golden-eyed variants. For some reason, this reminds Tauka of the golden aura from Tekudo, which he finds ominous. Continuing their journey, Mist mentions that she has been sensing a monster nearby for a long time, despite it being weak. Finally, Tauka reveals Slimy to her, hoping they will get along. Seeing how exhausted Mist looks, Tauka tells her to lie down. After she does, he casts sleep on her so she can rest. As Mist sleeps, her disguise magic comes undone, revealing that she is indeed the elf from the woods, Cirrus. Meanwhile, in the woods where Tauka killed the armed group, the Black Dragon Knights discover the aftermath. Concluding that a skilled warrior was responsible, they guess it was Cirrus and begin their hunt for her. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this.